Where was my able-bodied assistant? Where was the person that I turned to look for support in moments of need?
What would you have wanted from me? To bring you a change of pants? Like, what was the situation with this? Like,
so many questions that we could have asked, and he's such an intriguing character. And I felt disappointed and a little bit embarrassed that the interview had gone off the rails and we'd lost the opportunity.
I don't about that.
I'm not a few.
I don't about it. I said we didn't want to bring him up in the first place. It ain't got to do with him.
Where are you or Lewis on this fight?
I would sort of favour Chisora, so I would, but as I say, like when I think of Deontay Wilder, it's one-punch KOs.
He's obviously game, he's got that equaliser power as well. And I think it's a very good fight. It's a risky one for the first defensive.
At the end of the day, we're boxers, we're fighters. You know, if you're not willing to get in with anyone, then what's the point of boxing? What's the point of being a world champion?
I think most people believe that he's going to win the fight, but by no means is this like, because this is a serious test for Fury.
If he's what he is against Usyk, then the Makhmedov fight should be relatively straightforward for him.
But one of the things he doesn't appear to want to talk about is fighting you. If that were a fight that were in the offing, would you take it?
Absolutely, I would take that fight in a heartbeat. Me against Conor Benn, I think that's just fireworks from the get-go. But I know after this fight, they will know me.
Welcome to episode 158 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith. Today we're joined by the IBF welterweight champion of the world, Lewis Crocker. Gentlemen, nice to see you today.
Likewise.
A peaceful studio this time, I feel, perhaps. Last week we had an interesting discussion with Deontay Wilder. Before we discuss the various nuances of that, let's listen to some of it that happened last week. I wanted to move you on to Tyson Fury.
I don't want to talk about him.
No, you're going to.
We're here about this.
No, but you're going to.
We're not going to talk about him
at
all.
But as part
we're
of
not going to talk about him at all. Understand that?
No, fair enough.
All right then, so let's move on. It's all about David Chisora, and that's it.
I understand that. The only
back, baby.
The only
Y'all
reason,
understand that? You better be. April the 4th is going down.
The only reason.
At the O2, you better be there.
Fabulous.
You'll be a square.
The only reason I mentioned it is because it's part of the shtick that goes with you. And I missed you first time round when you came in here 3 years ago, when you were in your pomp 4 years ago, doing Bomb Squad and all that sort of stuff. And I've always wanted to have a conversation with you because you've made observations about Fury. I have my own views on Fury. And you've called him a cheat. And it leads me
the biggest in boxing.
Yeah, but it leads me to a conclusion.
Biggest in boxing. If somebody practicing, taking their stuff out of their gloves in training, what you think they're going to do in the fight?
Yeah, but...
That's all I got to say about that,
I want to put something to you about you, right? And Fury just happens to be the hook for it.
That's all I got to say about him.
You talked about being cheated in that fight. You talked about water being spiked. You talked about your Game of Thrones outfit being too heavy for you.
I didn't say that.
You said it was too heavy for you.
I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I might be wrong on that one. You talked about the long...
Y'all took a journalist that said something because y'all, everybody wanted to come in, why did boom, boom, boom.
You talked about a long count, right? And then you talked about the trainers, Mark Breland not being good enough.
No, I ain't say he wasn't good enough.
So what I'm asking you in all of this is, it sounds to me, given the character that you are, that's like a little bit flaky. You lost those fights, and those fights were lost. And you saying that someone like Fury cheated you in those fights, I think is kind of disappointing to me about you because
I know the truth. I have the facts.
Okay.
Understand that. You can believe what. Why is it so hard to believe a black man in a white man? Understand me? Why is it so hard to believe a black man in a white man?
Why you don't believe it?
Why is it?
Let me ask the question.
Yeah, go on.
So we can go there.
First and foremost, it's got nothing to do with colour.
No, it does. This whole country got something. This whole world got something to do with race. Tell him to sue me so I can show the facts early. Because when the documentary and everything, the story come out, I'm gonna show everything.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna get all the people that know and all the people that's in the inside. He got people that the inside of him that can know. I don't what? I don't about that.
I'm not a Fury.
I don't about it. I said we didn't want to bring him up in the first place. It ain't got shit to do with him.
Fair enough.
The you talking about?
Yeah, man. You, man. I'm out too.
Paul, unfortunately for me, you weren't here last week. I was left with Tattoo from Fantasy Island to defend me, and we'll get to him in a minute. When you look at that, and I know you will have seen all of the show, what did you make of all that?
I don't think he's all there at the moment, or what we get with Deontay Wilder. What I've noticed over the years, there's a lot of big American heavyweights and American fighters who are more sort of interested in how things seem and look than actually how they are. Now, he's at a strange point in his career where many, possibly yourselves, think it's not there no more for him. I think he's past it compared to what he was. I think he's at definitely the latter stages of his career. And so is Chisora, so I'm okay with the fight because it's evenly matched. If he was up against someone young and someone hungry or someone established, like a Dubois or like a Tama, then I would have a problem with it. But that's not sort of normal behavior. At the end of the day, you've said a lot of stuff. You're going to be asked about that stuff, and the stuff that he's saying is not really fair towards Tyson Fury, taking stuff out the gloves. And I'm sure Tyson's legal team will probably have a lot to say about that, but I would have liked to see him answer what you were asking him as well. And as you said, if I was there, I think I'd have done a bit more than your other bodyguards on the end there, Spencer. Like.
Absolutely, not difficult. We'll get to you in a second. What was your? I mean, a lot of people watched it, and I was disappointed, Lewis, because I wanted the interview to go a different way, and there were so many questions that we could have asked, and he's such an intriguing character, and I felt disappointed and a little bit embarrassed that the interview had gone off the rails and we'd lost the opportunity. Of course, other people like it because it's sensationalised. But when you looked at it, what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, I was nervous for you watching it, so I was, to be honest, mate. But yeah, it's a fighter. You know, fighters have a lot of emotion and stuff, and you could see obviously like the losses. They're still playing on his mind. You know, like he did come out with things like saying they were heavy and whatnot. So I think just looking back on them defeats, it's really took a toll on his whole ego as such.
I mean, one of the people that was lighting it up a little bit was Derek Chisora, who was enjoying it and creating a different scenario in the studio than was there. And also I noticed that Derek has had a lot to say for himself after the interview. And I just want to clarify in people's minds, because I've seen it being reported. At no point was that question excluded from the interview. At no point prior to the interview was it excluded. Derek kept Deontay waiting for 45 minutes because he was late. So I expect he was getting an agitated frame of mind sitting upstairs in the green room. But if I'd have been asked in a production meeting or prior to the show not to have asked that question, I'd have debated with them prior to the show going, I didn't want to put that question. And if I was told categorically, you don't ask that question, then, and I'd agreed not to do it, which is somewhat, I think, what Deontay's saying and what Chisora was saying, is totally untrue. Because if I'd have said to those boys, now, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to ask that question, and then went and asked it, then I'd expect to be getting all the blowback that I got. But that conversation, that question was never off the roster. It was never what I considered to be an unreasonable question, because we're sitting in the UK. We're talking about Tyson Fury, who's in this country is regarded by lots of people very highly, and you've got an American heavyweight coming in there telling everybody that he's a cheat. So I don't think it's unreasonable. But prior to just, or in line with just correcting Derek, let's also have a listen to what Derek has been saying, because a lot of it is a lot of old nonsense. If you want to go, go. If you want to be clever, Derek, be clever. That's not right. What happened there wasn't right.
He told you don't bring it up, but you...
Come on. It's on schedule. I had to ask the question. What about Fury? Everyone else can ask him. Rick Reno asks him. Why can't I ask him? Derek, sit down. Come on. I waited for you for half an hour. Don't be a head. Don't be a... I only show that not because I want to glorify myself, but because Derek's running around saying things that aren't true. And I got a phone call from him on Thursday with his little mate Jason, who's a friend of mine, ringing me up and telling me what he thought of it and so on and so forth. One of the things that I did notice from the environment was a lack of support from you, Spence. Where was my able-bodied assistant? Where was the person that I turned to look for support in moments of need? Where were you in all this?
What support would you have wanted from me? To bring you a change of pants? Like, what was the situation with this? Like, your little mate on the end there as well, Paul Smith, he wouldn't have been doing anything either. If you were sitting next to Deontay Wilder, get me in there, and you saw him raging the way he was, by the way, I knew he wasn't going to hit you.
He would have looked after me.
I would have easy.
I would have bought 2 pairs of pants then. All right, 2 pairs of pants, there you go. But,
big ones
no,
for
look,
me.
on a serious note, yeah, Deontay lost it a little bit. Look, that question is always going to get brought up, isn't it, about Tyson Fury? How can you do an interview with Deontay Wilder and not bring up the question about Tyson Fury? That is part of it. I spoke to him, as well, and he sort of he didn't want that question to be asked. You go, well, how are you not going to ask that question? That was the point. So and he lost it. It clearly irritates him. He can't get over the losses to Tyson Fury. And to answer the question, by the way, guys, about his mental state of mind at the moment. If you go back in history, Deontay Wilder, that is Deontay Wilder. If anything, that showed me that is the Deontay Wilder of old. His character at least coming back. Whether he can implement that in the ring is a different story. But that was the old Deontay Wilder, where he's sort of like, he blows up, he's unpredictable. And we saw a little bit of that. So from his side of things, you go, well, that might be a positive, And I think to answer people's questions about whether he's in the right mental state of mind and whether he's mentally not quite there yet, well, the answer would be, it's no different to what he used to be like. I think that's just his character. I think that he's absolutely fine. When you speak to him off camera, guy's fine. is absolutely fine. If someone's mentally not right, you can tell in their eyes when you're speaking to them. You know that there's an aura around them. That you get that feeling. With Deontay Wilder, he's fine.
Put aside the circus act that a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people enjoyed in terms of the controversy of Deontay becoming very aggressive and storming out the studio and whatever else that went with it. When you look at the likely outcome in this fight, Paul, where would you go with this? I mean, we talked about the Bronze Bomber and this, because one of the things that I did talk to him about was this ayahuasca situation.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was intrigued to understand how he's got himself involved with that situation, because that process is a process that strips people of all their ego, pairs them back to the basics and gets them back into some sort of condition. And as a fighter, one of the things you need is your ego, the belief that you can do things that others can't. And his alter ego is the Bronze Bomber. So I was alluding to the fact that by doing ayahuasca, you've put yourself in a situation where you change your whole character, your whole outlook. Are you going to get back to that? And then, of course, we see the outburst, and then you superimpose, the Bronze Bomber's back. Do you get the impression that we're going to see a revitalised Deontay Wilder? And if we do, who would you pick to win that fight?
Not really. I don't expect to see a revitalised one. If he is, then I might try ayahuasca myself, because I wouldn't mind being revitalised. But I don't think it does that, with all due respect and all jokes aside. And I just think I'm a boxing purist. I'm a boxing person, and I think I've seen over the years, just like Spencer, Lewis, even yourself will notice and see it. You see over the years, fighters decline with age. Father Time beats us all, and then there's no real way back. I don't think you can't wind the clock back. You can't go to the fountain of youth. It's not, it's not that. And I think it was gone a good few fights ago with Wilder. Just my opinion, but that's what I've seen and what has been proven. The same with Chisora. I was one who was calling for Chisora to probably retire, but, and then when he was going to get to 50, I was thinking, well, okay, at least it's going to be against the right type of opponents.
Irrespective of his performance against Gerald Washington, against Otto Wallin, against Joe Joyce, this new renaissance.
Yeah, just because it's the wrong sport to overstay your welcome. And my case for fighters, I care about fighters. I don't want to see anyone. What happened to Spencer years ago, thankfully the British Boxing Board of Control's medical facilities is unbelievable. And Spencer's here laughing, breathing and cowering away when you're getting attacked.
I was going to say,
But
bringing spare pairs of pants to your shows, what's all that about?
But fighter first and fighter safety first. The only reason I'm okay with this fight is both of them in the same boat.
Yeah.
But as a fight, I can see maybe Chisora weathering the storm. I think Chisora's probably got a bit more left than Wilder. Weathering the early storm, the early onslaught, coming on strong, probably stopping him late.
Where are you, Lewis, on this fight?
I would sort of favour Chisora, so I would. But as I say, like when I think of Deontay Wilder, it's one punch KOs, and it's so many of them as well. So especially as you always say, like the power's the last thing to go, and especially as a heavyweight, it just takes one shot. So it'd be interesting to see how much he has really in the tank left.
Yeah, I don't think we've sort of witnessed anything in recent times to think that Deontay Wilder has got anything left in the tank. And I think the fighter is the first one to know it and the last one to admit it. And I think he's going through that stage right now where he goes, he still thinks he's got it. He's had his troubles outside of the ring. He's now blaming that for his performances inside it. But I'm with you guys. I think that when it's left you, it's left you. But one thing that doesn't leave you is that punch. And, I think if he can rediscover a little bit of the old Bronze Bomber and maybe fight with his heart on his sleeve a little bit more and let his hands go, we've got a great fight. It's a great fight.
That's the thing with it, though. Like, Billy Graham used to saying, fighters are the best people in the world at lying to themselves and lying to, I am fit, I am on weight, I am going to do this. I think he's trying that much to convince himself. He's trying to convince us, and I don't think we're going to be convinced that he's still got it and that's still there, but he's probably trying to do a job on himself and trying to speak to himself in that way every day. I've still got it, I'm still the Bronze Bomber, and I'm still this. And as the lads have just said, the power is probably the last thing to leave you, but the timing leaves you first as well.
He was very clear in his mind, and we'll move it on to some other heavyweight news in a second, but he was very clear in his mind that the distractions out of the ring, all of the consequences of the things that were going on in his life, and the epiphany he had was after the Zhang fight, that he realised that his mind wasn't here. He wasn't blaming Malik Scott, he wasn't blaming anything, and he wasn't seeking for any kind of excuse-making. He was saying, my mind was completely out of kilter. And I sort of said to him, well, I thought you'd have realised that after the Parker fight. But he was clear that his mind was clear. We'll see. Listen, on paper, it looks like a fascinating fight. I'm with you that you've got two fighters that are at the different ends of their career, so it probably equals out. I think Chisora wins. I think he does what Derek does, he pushes him back. And when Deontay's on the back foot, he can't throw punches as he does, it gets off balance. But anyway, we'll see. Other heavyweight news that's coming out, which is DAZN's news desk, have put out a notification that it's likely to be Daniel Dubois versus Fabio Wardley on May the 9th at the O2. What do you make of that as of a fight for Wardley, Paul?
I think it's a very good fight. I think it's a brilliant fight for the fans.
First title defence.
Yeah, it's a tough first title defence. And listen, I've had my opinion on Dubois many a time, but what I've never ever not said is he's an unbelievable athlete and a good fighter and a very dangerous fighter and someone who would be a nightmare to be in the ring against, given his size, his tools, his attributes, just the whole presence of him. I think it's a very tough fight. I think it's a potential to be a brilliant fight.
I think so too.
And Wardley is the type that can bring that out in Dubois, as in he'll absorb a lot. I think he's got a really good chin. He's tough. He's obviously game. He's got that equaliser power as well. And I think it's a very good fight. It's a risky one for the first defence, I think. What about yourselves?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, mate. I think that the momentum is definitely with Fabio Wardley. You know, coming off that Joseph Parker victory is going to elevate him to another space. Like, you know, you look at his career and how he's gone from strength to strength and has been the underdog all the time and always chasing the guy with a target on the back. Now he's the guy with a target in the back. And as you both of you guys will know, when you win that title, it does take you to a different place. When you're the champion and not the challenger, it takes you into a different mind space. And I think that gives Fabio the edge for sure, because Daniel, you know, you're coming off that defeat and that PTSD that he goes through. Will that reoccur? But one thing is for sure, he fancies that. He fancies the fight. And I think, by the way, a lot of people, we were talking about it a couple of shows ago, weren't we? When you're talking about the rebuild of Daniel Dubois. The best thing for him to do is jump him straight back on the saddle and straight back into the ring with the top contenders. I don't think he's the type of fighter that needs that rebuild.
That's what I was going to ask Lewis. Obviously, you're in that position now. Have things changed now? You've got the target on your back.
Oh, for sure. Like, I was always the one, like, hunting, like, as they say. And then it was for, like, 6 weeks straight. I had an opponent call me out every week, and there was fights everywhere and stuff. So, but since I became world champion, like, everything's changed. Like, my mentality's changed, everything. Like, I've started the year, like, so strong. And which I think Wardley is going to be full of confidence going into this fight. Especially, like, he's very, very tough. Like, even if you drop Wardley, you know he's getting back up and he's come for. He could be down 11 rounds and he's still going to be there. But what a great fight for the UK fans.
That's what I'm curious about, Simon, how Wardley will deal with now being in the driving seat rather than being hunted now.
I think
he'll deal with it.
Given what Fabio has achieved and the direction of travel and the way that he's been written off pretty much in every fight except Justice Hooney, I don't think it phases him. I think the biggest challenge for Fabio was fighting in front of the Portman Road crowd at Ipswich, where the expectation was so high of him that he, to my mind, wasn't operating at the level that he's operated in previous fights. But he got past it. Can you relate? I mean, you're just about to take, and we'll get on to you specifically a little bit later on in the show, but he's taking a really tough title defence here. Daniel Dubois is, you know, a very dangerous opponent and someone that a lot of people think is going to get a world title back at some stage if Moses Atoma doesn't appear over the horizon too quickly. Can you relate to the mindset of your first defence being such a hard one, given the fact that you are, by definition, taking a very hard first defence?
Like, at the end of the day, we're boxers, we're fighters. You know, if you're not willing to get in with anyone, then what's the point of boxing? What's the point of being a world champion? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, no matter who the opponent is, willing. If you want to take the easy way, that's fine. But if there's an opponent there who's set and that's for you, get on with it. What can you do about it? Do you know what I mean? Control uncontrollable, and that's what you have to do.
But there is an element, though, isn't there, of settling down and being a world champion. You know, sort of getting into a position where you don't get, because I was talking with Frank Warren about Nick Ball, and I'll get into that in a second, but there is an element of fighters sometimes get a little bit of a gimme first time round to get themselves into a comfortable pace of acclimatising to being a world champion. Going straight in with a hard fight like you're doing is just your version of the best way to do things, is it?
I mean, I don't even think about it like that. I wish I had an easier fight or anything. It's just
what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you know? So you may as well just accept it and get on with it.
I think the landscape's changed a lot in recent times as well. When guys pick up world titles, it was that old school way where you might get a defence, two defence. I mean, look at Chris Eubank Senior and Nigel Benn and some of the opponents that they boxed, and they go down in history as, you know, greatest British fighters of all time.
Do you think Spence?
But you go, that has changed a lot now. I think.
Do you think for Daniel? I mean, obviously a lot's changed in Daniel. He's changed camps and then changed it back again.
Yeah. There
was a lot of disappointment in the performance that Daniel put in against Usyk, not because anyone marginalised Usyk's talent, because they expected a little bit more at certain times from Daniel. Is this the right fight for Daniel? I know you said a moment ago that for him going back in, he doesn't need a rebuild fight.
Yeah.
Why is he any different from anyone else? Why is he any different from Anthony Joshua, anyone else?
Just the character that he is. You know, I think Daniel Dubois is, you know, he's just one of those guys that he doesn't want to get, but, you know, we talk about Nick Ball in a bit, and he's a similar sort of character where he'll want to get straight back in the big mix. Some fighters need a confidence builder, you know, because it's a psychological battle as well as a physical one. He's not wired that way. So Daniel Dubois, boom, he will have forgot about that last defeat. He'll want to go straight back in their fight for titles. It's the perfect fight for Daniel, and also the perfect fight for Fabio, because you look at this and you go, it's one of those fights you can see both guys winning. Yeah, Fabio will start marginally favourite, but Daniel Dubois hits as hard as any heavyweight out there. Fabio Wardley does get hit.
Who wins it, boys?
What, for Dubois and Wardley?
Indeed.
Yeah, you've got to lean towards Wardley at this moment just because of the momentum, and we don't know what that effect is going to have off Usyk. Yeah, we've all got an idea and an opinion.
Wardley, I would have to back Wardley just with the confidence in he's on an all-time high right now.
Paul?
See, I'm the opposite. I am picking Wardley, but I would say Dubois will probably be favourite. But it sounds a bit daft, but I'm backing Wardley, and I think, again, I've said this time and time again, and this is why I agree with what you're saying, that I don't think he needs a warm-up fight. It's not his ability, it's not his fitness, it's not his desire, as technicalities or his technical makeup. That is the problem, in my opinion, with Dubois. So just get straight back in there. And if and when, as I said, the fight might get hard, then I would favour Wardley to come through in that in the end.
It's about the hardest first defence of a title that he could make against Daniel Dubois, because he's still young.
In the heavyweight division,
he's still young. He's still improving. So it's a tough fight. It's a great fight.
Sorry to interrupt. Just know when you were talking then and you were saying, you know, I'll fight him. Like, I'm looking at you laughing, thinking in my position, but I mean, I never won a world title, but I'm 7-8 years retired, and I'm looking thinking, as soon as you win that world title, you get your cash in fight, and then you'll have your hard fights. And it's usually the way it hasn't worked out that way for you, because obviously you're in a pace being a tough one, but you'll come to that eventually.
I'm going to kind of bring that point up in conjunction with Nick Ball in a minute and throw it back at you, because there's a reason behind that. In the background, before I close off this subject, will be the impending image of Tyson Fury. Everybody thinks he's going to beat quite comfortably Makhmudov. Well, I think he is. Well, most of us turned around and said a 60% Tyson Fury will beat Makhmudov, didn't we?
Listen, I think most people believe that he's going to win the fight, but by no means is this because this is a serious test for Fury.
Not a gimme, but Tyson, if Tyson Fury's got 60% of himself left, most of us think he's going to get past Makhmudov, don't we? So my question then leads to Wardley or Dubois. If it lands in that space that Fury comes over the horizon, beats Makhmudov for the purpose of this conversation, and then is waiting in the wings.
He fights the winner of that fight.
Correct.
100%.
How do we see that one going?
Depends on what Tyson Fury looks like, because we sort of can't give you that answer until you see what that layoff's been like for Fury at this stage of his career, what he looks like against Makhmudov. You can't pick a winner between a winner of that and a winner of that, because we just don't know at this stage of Fury's career what he's going to have left. So I think it's difficult to say that.
But
of course,
for the
Tyson Fury
of hypothesis, if Fury is back to where to some level that vaguely resembles what we saw against Usyk, right? Does he go into a fight against?
He goes
Wardley?
in favourite.
Right. Are you in that same camp, boys?
I would be.
If he's what he is against Usyk, he would go in as favourite. If he's what he is against Usyk, then the Makhmudov fight should be relatively straightforward for him, and a warm-up fight, with all due respect to Makhmudov. But I don't know. I just don't know. It's still there no more. And I'm unfortunately, the way it is in the heavyweight division at the moment is there's that much inactivity. We don't get to we don't actually know if it's still there. Only he will know.
It's a great test for him, because Makhmudov is the guy that will test him, and we will get the answers. He will.
Paul, Lewis, why Fury would be significantly debilitated? I know he's gotten older, but we've had long layoffs in his career before. We've had situations in his life where he's descended to the bottom and come back and fought at the highest level. He didn't take, it was hard fights, but he didn't take a massive beating from Usyk in either one of those fights. So is there any reason, besides Father Time really catching up with him, that we should price in that Fury might be significantly degraded? Why wouldn't we bake it into our thinking, given what we know of this man?
I don't think he has
can come back at a high level.
Significantly degraded to not be able to reach that top again. I think we're talking fine margins here. And with Tyson Fury, a lot of it's lifestyle, Simon. You've lived that life. You know, going like when fighters sort of, and the boys will back me up on this one, when a fighter trains and he trains like a demon to get into that title fight, he wins that title fight, and then he disappears for 6 or 8 weeks, puts on loads of weight, loses it, that takes its toll on your body. And at some point, you can be in the gym and you're looking great in sparring, and everything comes and that bell rings. And as you guys know, sparring, competing, two totally different things. The bell rings and the fight has just left you. And he's at that stage of his career that it could happen. The wheels could come off at any point.
Are you in the mindset we see Fury as a world champion again, Lewis?
Yeah, it'd be rude to rule it out. Like, anything can happen in heavyweight boxing, especially a big name. He's gonna get the big fights as well. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Let's move it on to a rather disappointing evening for British boxing, which was Nick Ball losing his WBA featherweight title to Brandon Figueroa. You were both there. Both you and Paul were there, Spence. What did you make of the fight, Spence?
I thought it was a great fight. You know, it was always going to be a tough fight for him. Figueroa was obviously the mandatory, so it was a fight that he had to do. You know, when a lot of people talking about was the height a big problem for him. When he boxed Ray Vargas, it was 5'10". So no, he knows how to, you know, he knows how to deal with taller fighters. It's nothing new to him that. But Figueroa was just one. It was one of those fighters that just kept coming. Yep. He made it very, very difficult. And pushed Nick Ball right to the end. Nick Ball had nose problems in there as well. I think weight was a big problem going into this one as well. I think he sort of may have just started to outgrow this featherweight division. And Figueroa had done a great job. And I think that at that stage of the fight, after round 11, I think that most of us would agree it was one round one way, one round another way. Could have even been level. So Nick Ball knew he had to roll the dice a little bit, and by doing that, he got caught with a shot, and that's boxing. You know, he took the gamble and paid the price. No shame in that. I mean, credit to him for getting up. When he falls face first on the canvas, you don't see many fighters getting up, do you?
Were you
shocked? Done that.
Were you shocked, Paul, by this outcome, or did you see this as a potential banana skin for Nick?
I saw it as a potential banana skin. I said everyone all week, this is a bit of the way I said it is, I think it's a hiding to nothing for him. If he beats him and beats him well, it's like, well, you should have. And if he doesn't and he struggles, people who don't really know how good Figueroa is are going to criticise him for it because he's a world champion in his home city fighting, and he's on the crest of a wave at the moment, talking about potential fights with Inoue. Now, tactically, I think he could have been a little bit better. The shot, there's nothing you can really do about that. At the same time, punching, his non-punching hand was okay, if I'm not mistaken. A little bit low, just about to get up, and he's just been clipped with a lovely shot. As Spencer said, I totally agree. I was amazed he got up from it, to be honest with you. The way he landed, the way he fell. And you've lost to a good opponent and a good fella. He looked a little bit flatter than what I've seen in the past, Nick Ball.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you something about the opponents he's had. And this goes into the face of having tough opponents, right? I'm not being disrespectful to the roll call of fighters that he's fought, right? But when he fought Ray Vargas, which, by the way, we all know he won that fight and should have walked away with that belt. When he beat Ray Ford, right?
That was a great win.
They were great wins, right? And they were at a high level. And then he gets, with due respect, he gets another 15 fighter in the world, Ronnie Rios, in Liverpool as a bit of a gimme, right? Then we get TJ Dehoney. Then we get Sam Goodman, right? To my mind, these are fighters that are at a certain level, and then you get Brandon Figueroa, who's at a different level. These three fights and having fights at a certain level of fight, a certain calibre, do they prepare him for the kind of opponent that he got well, or do they disadvantage him by fighting lesser level fighters?
It's a good question. It could be one of both. It could be you've been at that level and you drop down, with all due respect to TJ Dehoney and the rest, a little bit lower. But now you've got to go right back up again. And as a young champion like him, in the shape that he's always in, and having that momentum of being a new world champion with all that confidence behind you, which must be up there, like exactly how you're feeling now, you would expect him to up his game. Now, Bayer say he looked a little bit flat. He could have had a bad sleep. He could have had a bad weight cut. He could have been... It's something. There's got to be something there, but he just didn't look his usual self to me, and I'm not making excuses up for him. He lost the fight fair and square.
Because I put that to Frank. I said to Frank about it. I said, again, as me fishing for a reason why Nick Ball didn't get the outcome that we felt that he would get, and the performance that he put in, which resulted in him having to go into 12 round. If he was ahead in that fight, he might not have approached the 12th round the way he approached the 12th round, because I think the corner was saying to him, you've got to go win this round.
Yeah, but he's been at that level because Ray Ford, Ray Vargas are at that level.
Yeah, but the last three fights, you always say, Spence, you're as good as your last fight.
As good as, no, but what I'm saying is that he has that experience, so he knows he's getting into that stage of a fight. He knows how to read the fight.
But if you drop into second gear sometimes, and you languish in second gear, isn't it more difficult to get out of that gear sometimes?
Yeah, but I just think that it was always stylistically going to be one of these fights. He knew what he was going into. Like, it's not like there's any decline from him. I think he's been chasing those bigger fights, and Inoue always been in the background, fights like of that sort of magnitude. And sometimes, a fighter can get stale at a certain level because they want the bigger fights.
But it is fair to say, Spence, though, it is fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that Sam Goodman, TJ Dehoney, and
Are not
Ronnie
at
Reyes
level.
are not at the level of Ray Ford
yes.
and Ray Vargas.
And the way I
That
look at
doesn't mean it doesn't prepare him for a fight like Figueroa.
one thing I noticed, Spencer, and to all of you, is the one thing I noticed on the night, why I'm saying he didn't set the usual white-hot pace that he sets.
Yeah.
Right,
And he sets a phenomenal pace in his fight, and it's one of his biggest assets. But as you just said, he's setting that pace against those 3 fighters. And when you step it up in level, you can't really just go a little bit, throw caution to the wind and set that pace, because he's a well better fighter in front of you. But as I said, I think that fight was a bit of a hiding to nothing, because the average casual fan on the couch is going to think, this kid, you should be beating him surely. If you know all of the fusses about Nick Ball, rightly so. Fight week, topping the bill in his home city, one of our own world champions, all behind him, and then the same banana skin's perfect.
What did you
fight.
make? I mean, before I bring in Brandon Figueroa's comments himself after the fight, what did you make of Figueroa's performance?
Yeah, I thought he was very, very good. Maybe why Nick Ball wasn't himself as aggressive and such as, like, you look what happened in the 12th round. You know, he obviously respected Figueroa's power and just thought it wasn't Nick Ball's night. No doubt he'll come back, but you know, anyone who would have given him stick online and stuff, like, it's so stupid. You're a world champion, he headlined and stuff, so you got to respect and getting up from the canvas in the 12th round. Do you know what I mean? And going back out on it. But no doubt Nick Ball will be back. He's always entertained to watch. He's a fan favourite, so he is. So, but again, Figueroa was unbelievable. I thought very, very good.
That is a good way to say it as well. He's just lost to the better man on the night. There's no shame in that with the type of fighter that Figueroa is.
And if you go deeper into it and you look at Nick Ball, you go, I think there was weight issues there. I think there's been weight issues there for a while. We see him on the Thursday at the press conference. You look at him and you go, this kid looks a ray of health. He looks brilliant. You see him on a Friday. He looks like he's in prisoner of war camp. He looks like he's just come out of it. He looks terrible.
Spence, where
right?
does
So
he-
the struggles on the weight. I know that I'm not making excuses for him.
Where does he go, Spence?
He goes straight into super featherweight, Simon. He moves up to super.
Well,
he
they've
won't box
offered
at featherweight
they've
again.
offered him a rematch.
They won't get a rematch. No rematch clause in it. It was a mandatory.
But the suggestion is that they're prepared to entertain a rematch. If they are prepared to entertain a rematch, does he take that rematch and do what Joe Joyce did, which was going against an opponent that's damaged him and then damaged again, or does he move away and go into a different division? Is that what you're suggesting?
He moves away and goes into a different division. From certain conversations I've had with people in and around it, I think his days at featherweight are finished.
How does that sit with the fighter, by the way? If you're world champion and you get beat by somebody, and ultimately you believe that you could have beaten that guy, how does it sit with a fighter when you've lost a world title?
He's the world champion.
It depends the circumstances surrounding it. What I said to you there.
I don't want to throw it to Lewis because he's not lost a world title.
I think.
True, sorry.
Yeah, I think he's outgrown the weight. I mean, you tell us.
Yeah, well, you know, it happens. If you're saying it about his weight and stuff, then there's no doubt that he should move up. Because if you're staying at that and you're struggling, especially a hard fight like that, you're just knocking miles off your career. So you are. So I think a fresh start super featherweight would be the right idea.
I said on the weekend, you know, it'll be a great rematch should it happen. And I made sure I said that because obviously I know it's a mandatory defence. I know there's not. I had a couple of idiots comment and pipe it up. There is no rematch clause. I get it. But it wouldn't be the first rematch that's happened for world title fights where there wasn't a clause in there.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good fight and a close fight. And I had it probably level after 10. It was really probably tough to score. But I would want to see that again. And I think most average boxing fans that watch that fight would want to see it again. So there is room for a rematch.
Yeah.
But as you say, only Nick and his team will know, and Spencer obviously, whether he's going to be moving up in weight or staying at the same weight.
Part of the team.
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, why don't we have a listen to Brandon Figueroa's vantage point after the fight?
Man, it feels amazing. You know, Nick Ball came to fight in front of his home fans. He had to give it his all. Nothing but respect for him. You know, he gave it all. He had a lot to risk. Man, I just left it on the ring, you know. I felt like I was dominating the whole fight. I felt like he was coming back in the middle rounds, but then I finished it strong.
Did you feel going into that last round then you didn't necessarily need to win, even though Manny Robles told me that he wanted you to finish strong?
Yeah, you know, I felt like I was in control, dominating. I was pretty relaxed, calm, cool, collected. But he said, go out there and give him more, kid. And I said, all right, I'm going to give him my all. And I caught him with that short left hook, and I hurt him.
Where do these incredible punch kind of volumes come from? Were you punching your way out of the cot as a child or something?
Yeah, you know, me and my older brother Omar Figueroa Jr., we've always had a great engine. We work really hard, and I feel like that's where it comes, you know, working hard in the gym, mountain runs. My coach Manny prepared me to the best. We were throwing over 1,000 punches, sparring 12, 14 rounds even in the gym against tough opponents. Big shout out to Andrew Sosa and Veneno, my sparring partners, and I was literally throwing over 1,000 punches.
We were talking about Nick Ball winning tonight and chasing a fight with Noye Nui. Are you after that fight as well?
Of course, you know, the best of the best. I want the best of the best. Carrington, all the world champions at 26. Let's get it, baby.
Post the fight, directly post the fight, we saw a little bit of a commotion in the ring, Paul. It wasn't Alan Minter versus Marvin Hagler sort of commotion, but what was all that about?
I saw a bit of it from as I was just walking out the arena. I've been there all day, by the way. I had obviously Steve Clark, who I managed fighting, and he'd won, and we stayed, must have been an event, and I just thought, like, let's just get out quick. As soon as Nick had sort of hit the floor, I thought, like, just get to the side door. But then I can see the cups being thrown, I can see everything else being thrown. My point on it, my take on it all, it's unsavoury. I don't like seeing it. If I win a world title fight in someone else's backyard, I'm going to celebrate until I can. What gets the home team riled up is when one of the away team is running over and doing it right in the face, and then they're going to react. With me, unfortunately for me, or fortunately for me, every time I'm in a corner or every time I'm involved with a fight, it's my brother. It's so... People doing that, to me, if my brother was on the floor, I would react completely. But it's not like sore losers type stuff. It's the celebrating after. That's all it is. And listen, they should be able to rightly celebrate. They've just won a world title in the opponent's backyard, as I said. But I think if you watch it back again, you might see something different. But I don't agree with like things getting thrown in the ring and all that. That's not on ours. But what you have to understand with boxing nowadays is obviously everyone's there. They're having a drink. They're not really in control of it, and fans will do that.
Obviously, Nick losing takes us down to 5 world champions. I mean, in the great scheme of things, for a country of this size, when you look at it and say we've got 5 world champions, obviously one sitting with us now, that's not a bad reflection of British boxing, is it?
I think it's a good reflection of British boxing. You know, when you go back just, 12 months or so when Nick Ball was the only reigning world champion, I think that, there's a little surge coming again, down to the likes of someone like Lewis Crocker, and I think that now we're in a good space right now. We're a tiny little island. I think, historically we've always done really well. We have our ups, we have our downs, but at the moment we're sort of like, sitting there or thereabouts.
In the rankings of all the various countries, we're third, right? At the top of the rankings are the Yanks with 19 world champions. Amongst them, they've got Shakur Stevenson, they've got Devin Haney, they've got David Benavidez. We have criticised and talked about the lack of heavyweights coming from the American side, from the side of the pond, given the fact that these people seem to have been drafted into the NFL and other sports. How impressive do you think the current crop, given there's 19 world champions in America, how impressive do you think that crop of fighters are?
I think they're very impressive. I think that the problem is when they're not dominating the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division obviously is the most attractive division. It's the pinnacle, not just of boxing, pinnacle of sport in many ways. If you look historically with your Mike Tysons and your Lennox Lewises and all those guys, you go like, that is the spot, and everything else trickles off that. And I think that's why Americans have maybe got some criticism, because they're not dominating the heavyweight division like they used to.
Well, we've got 3 in your division alone, haven't we? We've got Rolly Romero, we've got Barrios, and we've got Devin Haney. When you look at those 3 fighters, and eventually you're going to probably get your hands on one of them, aren't you? What do you think of them?
Yeah, well, I'd obviously rate Haney as the top.
Yep.
Based on his resume,
his performance against Brian Norman.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's definitely. I've had him on the pound for pound list, obviously, and that's actually a fight that I was chasing there, because it was the biggest fight in boxing after being world champion. That's what I wanted, the biggest fight, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But the likes you have Barrios, and he drew with Pacquiao. Or Pacquiao arguably should have beat him and stuff, and then Romero as well. He's been knocked out a couple times, so they're winnable fights. There's ones I'm taking confidence going into. The only one you would say Devin Haney would be a tough fight, obviously. But when I look at the rest of the champions, it's titles that I want.
Through choice, would you prefer a unification, or would you prefer to fight somebody else?
Unification all day long. I'm in this game for the biggest fights and the belts, and that's what I want. After, not looking past Paro, but I will beat Paro, and I will want a unification next. See, the difference between certain fighters' mindsets, the reason I asked that question is because certain fighters want the glory, and off the glory you get the financial reward, and certain fighters that are chasing the money, you go, well, what really is it?
That's what I was going to mention before, though. So I think that's an age thing or a stage thing where you are in your career. If you're in your mid to late 30s, you finally win the world title, you want to cash in as much as you can. If you're younger and you win a world title, you want all the belts then. You want to go again and again and again.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's fighters in this world that, without world titles,
only want the money.
They're getting paid. Big fights, where the money's going. That was the point I'm making, whereas someone like Lewis, you go, his dream as a kid
Refreshing.
is to win a world title. The financial reward comes off the back of it, not the opposite way.
But one of the obvious noises that's being made in this division is Conor Benn talking about going back and fighting at 147. But one of the things he doesn't appear to want to talk about is fighting you. If that were a fight that were in the offing, would you take it? I know that you're after belts, but you also know that the business of boxing, I don't need you to tell this, is about also getting rewarded and recognised financially as well. If that fight were in the offing, would you take it? And why do you think he's not talking about you?
Absolutely, I would take that fight in a heartbeat. Like you say about like a domestic fight like Wardley and Dubois, like me and Conor Benn. Like Conor Benn's arguably the biggest star in boxing in the UK. Like apart from Tyson Fury, but like if me and him were to get it on, that's a huge fight. He mentioned about the rehydration. I don't think he wants to do that, so I think that's why my name wasn't mentioned.
Do you think, in all good conscience, besides the economic value of Conor Benn, that he's done anything to merit a world title shot?
It's boxing, like, you know, like obviously, like he had.
You've done it the hard way.
Yeah,
right?
I did the hard way.
So you know what meriting a world title shot gets you.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone and fought Chris Eubank twice at a different weight class, got paid a lot of money. So in all honesty, given the direction that you've travelled in and the direction that he's travelled in and the noise that goes with him, and you being a world title holder, do you think Conor Benn merits a world title shot?
Look, Conor Benn works hard, so for me to say like he doesn't deserve like a world title, like he worked hard. I don't know if he should be made mandatory straight away, like next, because he hasn't fought at 147 in 3 years, I think. So I think they get a world title straight off the bat without having at least one fight back at welter. Maybe that shouldn't be right. But I wouldn't put him out of the world title contention clause.
I think he currently stands at WBC mandatory contender.
Correct.
Like you say, off the back of a
Correct.
3-year absence from the 147.
That's a WBC
division.
for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
They install people where they feel
That's
like it,
a whole
don't they?
different conversation, yeah.
Interestingly, we had Josh Kelly on the show last week talking about Conor Benn, and not to paraphrase him, it was easy money. But let's listen to Josh himself, see what he said.
We've been going back and forth for years, so it's a natural fight to make, especially him coming down to 147 and whatever else he's trying to make that. I don't personally not sure if he'll make it or not, but with both big names in the UK, that would fill a stadium out in a second. The stadium light will be filled out in a second, and that. But give him his due. He's come on the last few years and different things. He beat the shell of a man in Eubank in the last fight. I think personally it might be a bit unfair on him, tossing him in there with me at this moment in time, because I'm not sure if he's ever competed at like world level at the very top echelon and people with the prime, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, for me, it's an easy money fight. That's a take-over fight before I fight for someone else. If he ever gets the cojones to come in and jump in, but we'll soon see. I don't know.
I know you want to be diplomatic, Lewis, but it's my job to not let you necessarily be so. Do you agree with Josh that he's not at your level in terms of world title levels, yours or Josh Kelly specifically talking about himself?
Well, I think he could definitely beat Barrios, the champion now.
That makes him at world level then, doesn't it?
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like I think he could beat Rowley as well. I think he's a lot of power and stuff. But as you say, it's hard to sort of judge because he hasn't been at 147 for so many years now. So until he's in there with someone fresh and without the rehydration clause and such.
So it's not easy money. You don't concur with Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly's given him no credence whatsoever. Not at that level. Easy money. You're suggesting that Conor can beat two current world champions in your weight division.
I think he could, yeah.
I've always thought he could beat Barrios at 147 if he can get back to 147.
I don't think Conor Benn's an easy fight for anybody just because of his style.
No.
You know, in the 147 or 154 division, sure, I think he's earned the right to say that he's world class for sure, because you look at the champions and you're talking about fights there, even if you're talking about Josh Kelly, yourself or whatever, you go, that's a dangerous fight because of the way the kid fights. He fights with his heart on his sleeve. For me, he'll go out there and knock out or get knocked out.
For me, the kid's up there being mentioned in these names because he's beat Chris Eubank, and Chris Eubank was up at that level. At one point in his career, Chris Eubank was world level. He was beating former world champions and he belonged up there at that level. The issue for me with Conor Benn is will he be the same character, the same person that fought in that first great fight between Eubank and Benn at 147 when he's probably weight trained?
Personally,
especially for an IBF title when there's a rehydration clause, which is a little bit ironic given all the stuff that happened with Eubank, but can he boil himself down to 147 again? And after so long at 160, 155, I don't think he can.
That's why I think he lands at 154, Paul, because we know as ex-fighters that when you go up in weight, it's so difficult to get it back down. He didn't stay there just for a little.
So why doesn't he just accept that?
He stayed there a couple of.
So why doesn't he just accept that? Because I'll tell you why. Because at 154 he's got to fight someone like Boots Ennis or Josh Kelly, and I'm not having any of that. Thank you very much.
Totally agree with that, but I think that his team behind him will want to experiment whether he can maintain that strength down there. That's why he's not accepting it as we speak. He's going to try and get there. If he gets there and it's not right, obviously he'll go up to 154. But the science behind it all, they'll try and do that, Simon. But I just don't believe that he'll be able to adapt his body and maintain that strength at 147.
If you fought him, Lewis, how do you think you'd beat him? Do you think you'd knock him out? Do you think you'd take him down a stretch? How would you beat him?
Look, I'm always going to back myself, obviously. So I would. Me against Conor Benn, I think it's just fireworks from the get-go. I don't think that's going the distance.
Do you, Spence, think that there's a likelihood? I mean, obviously we see Conor jumping in the ring with Shakur Stevenson, who asked him into the ring. So let's get it right about people criticising Conor for being in that space. I criticise him for being in a ring with legends like Beterbiev and Triple G. I don't think you're in that company, but I understand if he's got the boldness to be there, let him be there, I guess. Can you see him, Conor Benn, not that it should be his gift, quite frankly, because these guys are the world champions, but can you see there being a domestic dust-up between Conor fighting either a Lewis Crocker or a Josh Kelly?
Depends whether he's chasing the money or whether he's chasing glory, because if he wants glory, then he's got to go and fight Lewis Crocker, and he's got to go and fight Josh Kelly, because there's still going to be a substantial amount of money on the table. You can fill stadiums wherever it may be. Or does he want to go for the bigger guys, where you go Shakur Stevenson, you're looking at those guys, even Teofimo Lopez, who lost to Stevenson, you look at those and you go, if Conor's going down that avenue, what's he chasing there? Is he trying to build his stock in the US? What's the actual... Go there, try and fight one of you guys, pick up the title, then go and do that.
What would you do,
That
Paul?
would be the way to do it.
You manage fighters. Steve Clark has a good win on Saturday night in Liverpool. You know what the game looks like. If you're looking after Conor Benn, what would you do with him? Where would you take him?
I'd want him to go to 147 for the big fights,
really,
which are a lot easier to make. I wouldn't want him to be at 154 going near Josh Kelly. I wouldn't want him at 154 going near probably the other champions, to be fair. But can he do 147? That's the issue. So I'd have to have that good conversation with him. I'd have to speak to the team around him, whatever nutritionist or doctors or whatever he's got around him that says he's going to make that weight safely and carefully first. It's a long time to not be at that weight. You know yourself, if Lewis was probably to step up and go up a weight and spend a couple of years at it, or 3 years at it at least, then getting back down is going to probably hurt you a little bit. He's not a teenager anymore, so to speak. But the best opportunity at 147 is just whether he can make the weight. I think that's the issue, and that's the deal.
Lewis, I mentioned at the top of this particular section that there are three Americans in this division. You've obviously got Mario Barrios fighting Ryan Garcia this weekend. You've got Devin Haney, who put on a fabulous performance, I thought, against Brian Norman Jr. And you've got Rolly Romero, who's yet to defend his title. Are these the three names that you are zeroing in on in terms of wanting to fight next?
100%. It's
once you take care of business, of course.
Yeah, for sure. I want the belts. That's it. Any other fight, the fight after this, I'm just focusing on belts, honestly. Because at least the thing is with Paro as well, making monetary. If Donovan and Paro fought, I still would have had to have the monetary after that. Then, so I'm getting this out of the way. And as I say, I'm not looking past Paro, but I get Paro out of the way, and there's no monetary now. And now so I can push on for the unification fights,
right,
which is what I want.
Let's go straight into that then with Liam Paro, because this is a very difficult fight. This is a guy that at the previous weight class beat Subriel Mateus, has fought at a high level, comes into this division, has a couple of good, decent victories. I mean, you've not taken an easy decision. This is not an easy fight for you, is it?
No, but I think at this stage, there is no easy fights as such. But I'm the welterweight champion. He was the light welterweight champion as well. He says about experience and stuff. He's been with higher class fighters, but you only beat who's in front of you. Do you know what I mean? So after I beat Paro, then no one can say that.
Because there was a point, wasn't there, where Paro was going to fight Jack Catterall, wasn't there? That was part of Jack Catterall's strategy before Jack got derailed by, or I think it was before he fought Arnold Barbosa Jr., wasn't it? Paro was on the radar.
and Paro lost to Richardson Hitchinson as
Correct.
well.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, he moved up after
Split
that,
decision.
by the way, didn't he? Yes,
A narrow decision.
It wasn't, mate.
Did you not?
I watched it earlier. It wasn't. It was disgusting. The judge actually that went in favour of Paro should be sacked. He should not be allowed to
That
watch.
bad?
It was that bad. Yeah, it was like a. When you're looking to see if you're doing scoring, it's like a 117, 111. You may see a 116, 112, but to go the other way. I mean, did you see that?
Yeah,
fight?
yeah, I see that,
I
yeah.
mean, it was a disgrace. Yeah. So no, there was no. It wasn't a close fight. He moved up. He's had 2 wins since then. You've had to travel, by the way, for this fight as well. Are you all right with all that?
Of course, like I get to do it as always the hard way as well. I won my world title in Belfast. I have my moment, so I'll travel anywhere. So will, and it's a shame that it's not in Belfast because it gives other people from the country to get an opportunity for the TV, you know, which I love to do because I was always that kid like on the back of Frampton shows and stuff where I was getting experience. But going to Australia and you know, like beating like the ex-champion in his home country, it'd be special.
Some fighters
before.
Never been to Australia, no.
How good, Paul, is Liam Paro? And how much of a test does he put up?
He's good in his test, as he's just said. You know, he's coming up though. So Lewis is a big lad. I think that was evident to see in his previous fight also, and I'm sure you fill out on fight night as well after you've weighed in. You know, you really fill out, and that £10 limit mightn't be as easy as many it would, and I mean that as a positive for you. So obviously he's done what he's done. He's only had the one slip up. He's beat good fighters also, Matthias and that. So he's a good fighter. But as you just said, there's no easy fight at this level. And you can look at it one way or the other. I've bad my mandatory put on me straight away. But you can look at it as you just said. That's out your way. Then you can concentrate on hopefully getting a fight where you can get a few quid in, what's relatively in your favour, and then you can go for the unification
And
fights.
I feel like I'll get the
belts.
respect as well, you know, like fighting a guy like
By
Paro.
going there.
Yeah, for sure, do you know what I mean? And I finally get like, because I feel like him and his team are probably just looking by me almost, you know, happy days, we home title win and stuff, but it's not going to be the case at all.
He's had 2 fights at welterweight, so he has adapted to it. He's adjusted to it now. And like he's a southpaw as well. Donovan, where you won the title, he was a southpaw. But your tactics against Donovan, the reason I brought that up was spot on because Paro is one of those fighters that likes to come forward. He's quite aggressive as well. You were sitting back, and now the normal shot to throw against a southpaw would be straight right hand, but you was check hooking with that left hook, which nailed him in the 3rd Donovan and the 8th. And you look at that, you go like tactically, you got that spot on. You was punching when he punched and whatnot. Similar sort of styles, really, with Paro, who's like quite aggressive, comes forward, does a lot of feinting and whatnot. But he does sit in the pocket. He does stay there too long sometimes. So that sort of game plan will work nicely for you. But that sort of style would suit you nicely.
Yeah, listen, I think Paddy Donovan is as good as fighter as Liam Paro, so do. It's a lot bigger, like physically bigger. So the two back-to-back camps training for Donovan are going to help me massively in this fight, especially like a southpaw and stuff. And like I've seen Paro's like most recent thing, and he got hurt a few times against a guy with 5 knockouts. Do you know what I mean? So I think the difference, just that £7 difference, is a big weight difference, especially like that I'm fully grown into the weight.
According to the Ring magazine, No Limit Productions outbid Matchroom by 27,000 Australian dollars. Does that frustrate you a little bit, Lewis?
Yeah, for sure. You know, like I think it's just by that small amount. You know, that's how close it could have been that it could have been in Belfast, but it's out of my control. You know, what could I be? I was in the gym when I found out, and okay, Australia it is then.
You'd have paid that yourself, wouldn't you?
Of course, 100%, mate. Like.
Mate, look at the flip side of it. You get a free holiday to Australia after. Take your family over there. It's all done, mate. Make sure Match will pay for it.
At least they will be better.
Is it dispiriting though, Paul, if your promoter doesn't win a purse bid, or is it just part of the territory?
Honestly, it is if you don't think they've tried. But I think when the numbers that close, they're on the ball. They're not stupid. Matchroom especially, they're not daft. They're putting a bid in, and they're just being pipped to it. They know roughly the amount that it's going to be. I don't think anyone's phoning each other behind the scenes and all that, but it's just one of the, you've lost by 27 grand or whatever it is. It's Australian dollars as well, so it's a tough one. But I think there's always sort of, what did we say, honesty when they're going for it, and then it's just one of them things. I've seen somewhere when it looks like they haven't even tried though, and they're like $500,000 out or something like that, and they haven't gone anywhere near it. But it's usually a little random number on the end just to win it, and sometimes they're lucky enough that they do get it, and I think the Australians have been lucky this time.
From a business perspective, do you understand how Matchroom didn't win that bid? Because you do sort of hear rumours, you know, that of bids that are going down.
But I think Paul's kind of answered it, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because if the margin,
no, I'm asking you. Do you understand it?
I understand it from the perspective of there's a value that people attach to a fight. There's a commercial value they want to put on it, and there's commercial sense. Now we've seen a lot of commercial sense go out the window over the last 2 or 3 years because the Saudis have been throwing money around like confetti. But people are re-establishing their thinking about what they're going to pay for fights, building people at different stages. Now, if Matchroom would have been, like Paul says, 300 or 400 grand out of it, then you'd be going,
different conversation.
Going on here. But when you're talking about probably a very small percentage of the overall purse, it's nip and tuck. So it just shows you that both camps were looking at the fight in a certain way. I wanted to ask you about you, Lewis. When you came in the studio with me and Jim a couple of months ago, it was a little bit longer than that. It was a fantastic experience for us because when you see someone that's so euphoric, so happy that they've achieved the thing that they wanted to achieve, it's a wonderful thing to sit back and watch. And it seems to manifest itself really in boxing. When Dalton was the same when he came in the studio, but I remember you grinning from ear to ear. Has it settled in your mind about being a world champion? Are you comfortable with that framework? And I don't want to say something stupid like, do you still have the same hunger? But it's sort of in that sort of territory because some people get to an Everest and go, I've got my Everest. So where are you mentally now from the euphoria and the elation of I've got a world title and coming in and bringing it in and showing us and everybody could see how ecstatic you are to where you are now with the next opportunity, the next set of challenges?
I generally feel like I'm more hungrier now than what I was even previous. Right. Because like I knew that I had so much more like that I could do as a fighter and improve on and I guess it's just like just thinking about it now. I think fighting Paro away in Australia, like an ex-world champion, and like that's going to be my fight, like almost like settling in. You know, like I'll get the respect that I deserve. So, like, but I was euphoric as any, but like that settled in. The hard work is back. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think you're missing any respect? Do you think that there's any plaudits that you're not getting?
Definitely, mate. But
from whom? General public, boxing fraternity.
Yeah, it's, maybe like a Donovan fans, like feel like he's won that fight and stuff, or a complete robbery and stuff. And we're like 2 knockdowns. It's like even if there's a couple of close rounds, it's not. I think like Paro probably thinks the same as well. Probably by just boxing in general. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't feel it, but with this fight, I will get the respect.
I think the fighters like yourself, when you come through a certain, like where you just not like catapulted, you've done it the sort of the hard way and you've had to grind your way and work your way to that position. Some fighters get gifted that and they're getting well recognised, they're getting good publicity off the back of it, then you get in the big fights, the big money, etc. I think that when you get to this, it's even sweeter though, isn't it? When you get these fights, you come through Paro, and then you get a big fight on the table. Let's say that Conor Benn fight happens, you get not just the rewards, but you get the financial rewards as well. That's even sweeter, man. And that's probably your driving force, because you go, I'm the man, and I'm not getting the recognition. Yeah. I understand it. I totally get that.
100%. Like the names that people talk about, like especially in America, it's going to be Devin Haney.
Yep.
People know Barrios.
Yep.
People know Romero. Not many people's going to know me. Do you know what I'm saying? But I know after this fight, they will know me.
The thing with yourself, after that first Donovan fight, I have to say it, I backed Donovan for the rematch because of how that fight was going.
You would have backed Crocker for the first fight. You would have backed Lewis for the first fight, though, didn't you?
Yeah. I backed Donovan for the second fight. And because of what happened to the first, and the fact that you changed it around so much tactically, technically, physically, you were the better man on the night and you won the belt. You gained my respect there and then, because I felt Donovan was coming on strong in the first fight. And the tactical change, everything, the way you boxed, you stuck to the game plan, you carried it out perfect. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass because you're sitting here. I've said that on record in the past. You've got my respect, and I think you've got a lot of people in boxing's respect, because I think a lot of people in boxing would have probably been in a similar way after watching the first fight.
Of course, yeah.
So you've done it, you've won the world title, and you've still got that hunger. That's a good recipe going into these type of big fights with Paro, and then hopefully you get the bigger fights after it, and I hope you do really well in them big fights as well.
So, if and when you go through this fight with Paro, what is the outline for you in 2026? I know people don't want to look beyond it, but we're all human beings. There will be an ambition chain for you. You're not looking, no one's suggesting you're looking past Paro, because you'll take care of that business and you'll attend to it properly. But if and when you get past it, what are you looking forward to, and what do you want to achieve in 2026?
Unification fight for sure, but I would love to see Conor Benn come through, win the WBC, and then get that on unification in the UK. I think that's massive, and that would be, if you're giving me like my dream fight this year, it if Conor Benn wins the world title, I'm still world champion. Unification fight in the UK would be exceptional.
We'd like that, wouldn't we?
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I like the attitude, always chasing belts, not people.
Absolutely.
If the person's got the belt, then I want him.
Yeah.
If he hasn't, it's the belt.
Brilliant. Lewis, good luck. That's it for episode 158 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith. Thanks again to Lewis Crocker and good luck against Liam Paro. And we'll see you next time we're out, which will be next week.